Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michelle Sutton, President and CEO of North Oaks Health System and a proud two-time graduate of Southeastern Louisiana University School of Business. I'm a member of the College of Business Advisory Board, a member of the Lions Athletic Association, and North Oaks is the official healthcare provider of Southeastern Athletics. And we are proud to be a sponsor of today's forum and to be a longtime partner of Southeastern Louisiana University. We truly are Lions for life. Our next speaker is William Sims, Senior Vice President of Professional Services at Lightcast, the global leader in labor market analytics. William has over 20 years of experience working with hundreds of Fortune 1000 organizations in the areas of talent acquisition, corporate human resources, strategy, operations, marketing, and executive leadership. He is particularly adept at using analytics to create strategies for people, sales, and sales operations. His experience is multi-industry, cross-functional, and focused on removing barriers around people in order to help companies achieve their initiatives. Please join with me in welcoming William.
All right. All right. Man, that's amazing. Amazing what Gen AI can do, produce an introduction like that. Some of that was even real. All right, fantastic. I appreciate y'all being here. Y'all having a good time? Yeah. Y'all ready to have some fun? Woo. All right, if you indulge me for a second, I'd like you to shake hands with the person to your left and shake hands to the person with your right. And whoa. There's a networking event. Stop, hold the phone. I saw somebody over here shaking hands with a dead fish hand. That's not gonna work here at this place, all right? So if you'd hold out your right hand, please, and wiggle your index finger, and I want you to wiggle your thumb. There's a piece of skin in between there. We call that a webby, all right? And when you shake hands, we touch webbies, all right? So try it one more time. Shake hands with the person to your left, shake hands with the person to your right. Introduce yourselves. I appreciate y'all indulging me. When you go back to your offices, you can say, "How did the forum go?" You can reply, "We touched webbies." All right. I say that's a bit an old mentor of mine used to do on stage quite a bit, Phil Guglielmo, who was a teacher at Grace King, impacted a lot of folks in Key Club and Student Council. If you're from this area, you're involved with Key Club and Student Council. You might have known Phil. He passed away 2 weeks ago. So that was a little bit for him. I'm excited to be here today to share with you guys a little bit about what's going on in the labor market. And this is a picture, it looks like Lake Pontchartrain, I think, Lake Marpaw, I'm not sure. But my job here today is to talk about perspective. Right? Perspective. Some of you might be in your own businesses, in your own offices, and you're looking around, you're like, you know what, this is pretty nice. Things are going pretty well. You know, inside these four walls, everything's going really well so far. Well, I'm perspective. And sometimes perspective can change when you open the door and look at the walls around you, and you look at the businesses around you, and you look at the factors around you that you cannot control. And it provides a sense of, let's say, urgency in this case, of decisions that you need to make for a pending labor crisis. In our office, we talk a little bit about it like a hurricane. We know what's coming, right? We can see it. And my question to everybody in the audience today is, how prepared are you? A storm's a brewing, it's gonna happen. And we're going to walk through some of the data sets to prove that that's true. So today, background introduction to Lightcast, labor crisis, economic trends, all the fun stuff you want to hear right after lunch, right? All right, so who is Lightcast? What do we do? And why does our business matter and help employees like you? Well, we're a labor market company. We provide data, right? We provide information to organizations on the educational side, on the government side. I've focused primarily with large enterprise businesses and organizations, all right? Global coverage, a lot of stuff. This is what we deliver and why companies partner with us. Market research, compensation benchmarks. We have open taxonomies on skills across the board. So fun stuff. But what we talk about a lot is that change is constant, right? The Great Recession, how many of y'all were working during the Great Recession? Quite a bit. 09, 10, 11, et cetera. Lost 8.7 million jobs. COVID, 22 million jobs lost. Great resignation, people are quitting like crazy. So change is happening all the time, but change happens when it hurts. And so we did a study a few years ago on global demographic changes and the worldwide need for workers. And in that study, we started realizing that there's a shift when you need them. And not all change happens. You don't change a lot when things are going well, right? You change a lot when things aren't. And so we've got a lot of opportunity in this area and with the people that are sitting in this room, for the people that care, because you can pretend to care, but you can't pretend to be there, and y'all are here, so I appreciate that, right, of what's happening in the overall labor market. We did an additional study where we surveyed 1,500 high school students and college-age students after we did this to understand, like, why are they going? Are they want to go to college? Do they want to go to trade schools? What is that they want to do? And what we found is that 85% of the respondents, which is probably a little high, we recognize that, more closer to about 63, 2 out of 3, are going to go and enroll immediately in secondary programs. That's great, right? Southeastern's here. That's good. This is good news. 2 out of every 3 native-born people are planning to get a 4-year degree. A lot of the reason they're going to do that is not why I went to school is to get a better job, to make more money. They're doing it for the social aspect that college allows them to have. So it's changing a little bit differently when we look at generations as to their motivations, as to why they're doing certain things. That carries over into the labor market as well, right? So how did we get here? We talked about it a little bit this morning with Ted, and he talked a little bit about, well, college enrollment has increased dramatically. When you think about boomers, birth rates, and what happened when boomers came on board is that women went to work too. So all of a sudden, the entire labor market doubled overnight, and they went to school. So you have a highly educated, motivated marketplace where there's a lot more competition than ever existed before. And guess what? Companies embrace that. And people embrace that. And they said, let's go. We got a lot of work to do. We can grow, we can expand, innovation happened. And now you're starting to see that mind shift of work for that generation played a major role in where we are today. They were able to outwork their competition. They were extremely productive. But we also found they created a lot of wealth. And that wealth is now being passed down generationally. They have the largest transfer of wealth when boomers, eventually retire and die off, largest transfer of wealth ever in U.S. history. All right? That impacts how younger generations feel about work and feel about money. So boomers are retiring at a rapid rate, right? What's that bottom part say? Everybody says they're going to retire at 66. Guess when they're retiring? 61. Uh-oh. We weren't prepped for that. Little gap. So retiring earlier than we anticipated. And so this current labor crisis that's existing, the storm that is brewing out in the Gulf, we're starting to feel some of those bands that are hitting us. So let's talk about it. Issue number 1. We discussed it briefly about labor force participation. Labor force participation in the United States around 63%, más o menos, right? That's not back to pre-COVID numbers, right? You see that dip? As we said, we were all hoarding toilet paper and all sorts of crazy things, hand sanitizer from liquor providers, et cetera. Or was that just us at Janny King when we were there? Maybe it doesn't matter. But the labor force is changing and people aren't jumping back in. 5 million people actually opted out and they didn't come back. So if you're thinking, man, it feels harder to hire than it ever did before. I'm posting jobs, I'm not getting the response that I ever had before. Like things feel different. There's data to support that it feels really different. But William, hang on a second, William, this is national data. We're the North Shore. This stuff doesn't happen here, right? Like, no way. Well, luckily, there's an app for that. Well, data for that. Labor force participation. So I pulled some numbers. This is going to be Livingston, Tangipahoa, and St. Tammany. Population growth. Guess what? Up and to the right. This is awesome. This is going to be job growth. Up and to the right. We are growing jobs, growing population. Everything's looking fantastic. Labor force participation rate. Wah, wah, wah. This is a problem. This is not a small problem. Who wants to guess how many people this small number actually impacts? Just in those three parishes. The difference between 59% and 54% for our working population. Look, 18,000 people gone. How many people out at North Oaks, Michelle? Just shy of 3,000, right? Perspective. Where's the shark, right? 18,000 people just left the labor market in our three parishes in the last few years. So we've got some work to do. Luckily, I'll keep piling on. So here we go. Retiring soon. You see that middle stat? This is still those three parishes. Guess what? I said people 55 and older, they're retiring earlier than ever before. Guess how many in our area are 55 or older? Only 163,000 people. Oh God. What are we going to do? Luckily, since my Apple phone listens to everything and every conversation I have, I got a notification that said this 2 days ago. The average American celebrates only one healthy birthday after turning 65. And if you wonder why people are retiring early, I would ask you to pause and take a beat. They're retiring early because they can. They're retiring early because they want to. And because life is too short. Now, luckily for us, look at all these millennials, 108,000 millennials. They'll save the day, right? Said nobody ever. But millennials are coming into the workforce, and they're going to make a difference. The unfortunate thing is, based on this study with 2,000 Americans 18 years or older, millennials only want to make $525,000 a year to be happy. Gimme, 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 gimme. Is this all tracking so far? We got problems, right? Perception, reality, expectations. We've got to be able to manage this stuff and manage it really well. They're leaving the labor force, and the question that I would ask you and your business to contemplate over the next little while is, do you know your numbers? Do you know the risk to your business with the people that work with you on a regular basis? If you're not thinking that way, if you're not spending time thinking about that, as much time as you're spending with your current customer base or supply chain issues or how you're going to move product or how you're going to build new things, I would encourage you to think a little bit differently. Because of those people, this slide formatted well, of those people, what it basically says is 80% of those people are out of the labor force. But the next thing is that women are leaving the labor force at a faster rate too. Why is that? Because childcare costs are freaking expensive, right? It's through the roof, and we felt this in COVID more than ever before. And so they're saying, is it worth it? They're doing math at their kitchen table, making decisions they don't necessarily want to make. I went to college, I went to school, I want to work, but when we look at it as a family, sometimes the math doesn't add up, and they're dropping out of the labor force. This cliff, we can see we're almost at pre-pandemic levels. The problem that we had prior to the pandemic is that we also added 8 million people to the labor force. And so now we've got a delta of about 3 million people. It's a gap. So that's the first issue. All right. This is going great so far, right? Everything looks fantastic. All right, so number 2, what's the other issue? Job openings. Congratulations to everybody in this room. I hope business has been going really well. Y'all have been posting a lot of jobs online and trying to hire a lot of people. It's been going through the roof. 9 million job openings. Pre-COVID was 7 million. It's gone up, way up. And so one of the things that we're seeing is that job posting increase in the last 5 years. There's less people, but there's more competition. So we have more jobs posted. It's gone up 120% since COVID. It's not all brick and mortar, too. Right? Because when COVID happened, there were other employers around the world, around the country, that said there might be some talent that I want. So when we think about that, we look at remote workers. Remote work jobs have increased in our 3 parishes 400% in the last 4 years. What about flexible work? I like this gig economy. I can work when I want to. DoorDash doesn't have an office here. I don't really have a boss per se. Like, I want to do what I want. Guess what? Those jobs have increased 600% in the last 4 years. So there's an ever-changing dynamic and marketplace that is happening right in front of us that is changing the way that jobs work in the market, that we work in the market. And when you say you can't find people, they're just not working for you, and they're not walking out the door and going to a competitor. It's different. It looks different, and it feels different. The third thing is, the U.S. is highly educated. Is this the problem? Well, it depends. Got it. It depends, right? And the challenge that we face right now is that of the folks that have the education, the jobs don't correlate. And so we're going to have to make some decisions. You're going to be hiring people that are highly educated for jobs historically you haven't. We've got almost 9 million jobs open in America. 5.5 of them need to be filled with a person without a college degree. And so the jobs we have, they're opening up the doors to get more people to enter those doors. So they're reducing things that they used to have. Like, we used to hire for a college degree, now we don't care anymore. It's not as important. And so employers and educational facilities are starting to have this conversation like, whoa, this isn't good for everybody. Like, we got to figure some of these things out. We have to bridge some of these gaps because this delta is too large. So who's going to do the work? Well, the folks that are leaving the labor market, guess what? They didn't have degrees. And the folks that are entering the labor market, they all do. In COVID, everybody went to school. And now you got 4.5 million people that are entering the labor market, while 1.2 million with associate's degree or similar are dropping out. And so all this means is that things can change fast. Are you prepared? 10 years ago, we had 3 times as many skilled workers for jobs than openings we have today. So we're starting to feel some of the outer bands yet? Making sense? All right, fantastic. U.S. labor pools could be facing a gap of almost 6 million workers by 2030. Yay! That's exciting. Anybody want to start a staffing firm? We got 3 labor pools, right? When we think about the overall market. Native-born, legal immigrants, undocumented workers. And native-born workers, let's walk through that real quick. Most of our labor force, as we talked about, is going to be retiring. I don't want to belabor this point, right? The folks that are entering the labor force is declining by 8%. That's where the real delta and the real challenge happens. We are now going to have a lot of consumers of product, consumers of healthcare, consumers of fast food restaurants, consumers of retail outlets, but they're not producers, right? They're not giving back to the job economy and to the labor economy anymore. How many people worked when they were 16 years old, 17, 18, or 19 years old? How many people worked in this room? Guess what? Bucking the trend. In the boomer population, the population today is 3.4 million times larger for the 16 to 19-year-old, and the labor force is 400,000 people smaller. Your 16, 17, and 18, 19-year-olds, they are not going to work, right? So we have some problems. We've got some challenges. The biggest issue here is that this cliff that you see in about 6 years, that's how far out we are to prepare for this. So although we're feeling some of these bands, you can see in that time frame, about 14, 15, 16, the recession, people stopped having kids. And they really haven't had kids since. And so where we've been able to supply that labor force into the market by having children and building that labor force up, that stops in about 5 or 6 years. So how are you preparing your business and understand what's going to happen? Because by 2034, older adults will outnumber children for the first time in United States history. Yay. So get excited. Thanks, JJ. Appreciate it. I think I saw Jim Cantori out there. He says there's a hurricane coming too. All right. So let's talk about immigrants. I was going to talk about women's reproductive health or something else topical, but immigration sounds just as good. Let's go. All right. Immigration has actually helped bridge this gap, right? So when we think about the labor gap that we have and all these things that are compression against the labor economy, why doesn't it feel as bad? Because 2.5 million immigrants have been added to the labor pool, and it's really eased the pain. But did you know that 1 out of every 4 immigrants work in construction, farming, or maintenance? 1 out of every 5 in manufacturing. 1 out of every 4 is physicians or surgeons around the country. They're heavily involved in healthcare. And then you have undocumented workers, right? And undocumented workers work in some of the critical sectors of our business or of our life, right? Construction, buildings and grounds, cleaning, janitorial, food services. Nearly 250,000 are in healthcare providers. They provide the nation's food services, these critical jobs within our organization. So why can't we move past it faster? Well, there's 3 million immigrants in the backlog, but luckily each judge only has 4,500 cases of the 3 million. So there's a gap. We're not able to open that door one way or the other. Well, what about maybe immigration will help us more? Mexico has a lower unemployment rate than the United States. Let me say it for you in the back. Mexico has a lower unemployment rate than the United States. Like, these people have got to come from somewhere to help us do this work. So, I'm sorry, and I don't mean to be the downer of the day, so let's get back to how we can make this thing right? What are the things that we can do? And I think part of it is being here in this room. This slide says there's a battle. I don't think there's a battle. I think there's an opportunity. Right? There's an opportunity for businesses, unskilled trades, trade schools, community associations, even going down to high schools for businesses to find partnerships that can help be creative and partners in unlikely areas. And so when we think about the critical work problem, there's 933 jobs in our 3 parishes that are in food supply, trucking, cold storage, just this month. When we think about home building, home building, 403 jobs this month in these 3 parishes. Community welfare, firefighters, police officers, 150 jobs this month. Oh yeah, we got to hire for the military too, right? That's a challenge. And when you think about white-collar jobs, potentially in healthcare, there's 600 jobs available today, right now, in this market, in these 3 parishes for healthcare jobs. And so IT and engineering, not a lot of jobs, but maybe IT, maybe AI, they talked about it. AI can fix everything, right? Because when I got a computer, I did less work. When I got the internet, I get less. Hang on a second. That is not exactly true, right? It's going to help us change the way we work and change the way we do business. And so robots will create some jobs in some areas, but they will help us be more productive in others. And AI is going to be a big piece of that. At Lightcast, in 2022, there's only 519 job postings that had AI. In 2023, there's 385,000. So whether you're putting it on there as a buzzword or try to see if you can get any additional help, like, it's happening. It's changing. And is it the savior we all want it to be? It can tell you how to paint a house, but it can't paint a house. Right? So not exactly yet. And one thing I'd like to spend a little time on is Gen Z. Right? When we think about this generation, Dr. Lopez said it earlier, and I asked her about it. I said, I go around the country and I talk to organizations and I hear people consistently, locally and nationally, that this generation is lazy. Has anybody ever heard that? And I asked Dr. Lopez, I think this generation is more productive than any generation that's ever been graduated out of Southeastern. Is that true? She said, absolutely, hands down, without a doubt. Right? It's not lazy. They view and value work differently than the generation before it. They think about work differently. The question remains, do you? Their perception and the skills side of it, 43% of them coming out of college don't want to do any physical labor. You just lost 43% of the labor force right off the bat. Boop, gone. Right? Competition gets real hard real fast when that happens. The thing that we can influence is unfamiliarity. What do they know about my company? What do they know about the jobs? What is it like to work here? What does that look like? What are these concerns? So how do we provide some solutions? In skills trade, these jobs, we got to be able to market these jobs a little bit better. We got to show them the impact that they can have. There's starting to be a resurgence in skills trades, right? Which is fantastic. And there's starting to be some real money. You can make real money, good money, generational money in this specific space, right? Skills trades, there's financial rewards now associated with it more than ever before. Create social networks like this event. This is phenomenal. Like, what do they have? Give them options to meet and greet other employers. Put yourself out there as an employer of choice in this area. Invest in your people. Think about the supply chain like you would think about your business, but your supply chain is people. Are you reacting or are you leading in this specific space? Do you know your critical people? Do you know your critical roles? Have you changed the way you've done things? Or are you just adding more money and doing them the same way? Right? We have to rethink the way we're doing business. Do I need to build talent? Do I need to buy talent? Or do I need to borrow it? Internships and apprentices. You've got to invest heavily in this space. If you want to make sure that you've got that supply chain of talent for what's coming, prepare them for the experience. Give them exposure. Rotate them through your business and train them. Don't tell me that I don't have people with the skills I need. Train them on the skills you want. Your competition is not your labor competition. Your competition in business is not necessarily your labor competition. Why do I say that? For hourly workers, Target invested $3 billion to raise their minimum wage to $15. That was 3 years ago. They just invested another $1.5 billion. Home Depot just invested $1 billion. Kroger just invested $2 billion. Lowe's just invested $3 billion, and then they topped it with another $1 billion. You are not going to compete in the hourly labor market in the way that you think you are. Your competitors look differently than what you think. Be prepared. And then network and get involved in immigrant communities. 20% of construction in Louisiana is done by immigrants. 5.2% of the labor force, about 200,000 in the state of Louisiana. So what we do now is going to determine by the actions we take. And so I would encourage all of you in here today, in closing, right? Think about these things. Put some time, some real energy, some effort. Think creatively about what options you might have for your labor force, for your customer base, for what you can do within your business. And I would encourage you to reach out. You can scan this, get a free report. You'll get access to all the information that was in here. I know it was a lot. All right? And then feel free to reach out to me. We'll get you any data sets that you need. Thank y'all.
William, we're going to walk around for just a couple minutes to see if anyone has a question before you get down.
Come on. Sorry. No questions, no questions, no questions.
Be brave.
Where's Gnarly Barley? Any questions?
I'm coming.
First of all, thank you for that uplifting presentation. Have you guys had any studies on really extensive onboarding of employees and whether that impacts longevity?
100%. So even from studies, I used to work at Career Builder. I was a headhunter for years. I ran talent acquisition for a long time. Correct. So your first hours make a decision whether you're going to stay at a company within the first 90 days. Okay? So the impact of that first day's experience, they will look for a job literally when they go home if that experience is poor. And it looks like a bait and switch, right? So like if you made that much investment so far and they walk in the door and nobody's there, their computer's not ready, nobody's greeting them, I don't have an agenda, nobody's taking them to lunch, nobody's showing them around the building, there's no interviews, walking around, meeting everybody, what do you do, how do you do it? Like you have failed. I talked to the guy that runs people analytics at Lowe's. I said, what do you think about turnover? Are you concerned? He said, turnover? That's adorable. He said, I care about quick quits. The people that leave our business in the first 90 days is an $800 million problem. Right? I mean, think of all the energy, time, effort, money that goes into getting somebody to walk through that door to say yes. Like, what's that first impression? It's like going on a first date. Are you going to come back for a second date if it sucks? No. I wouldn't. I'm happily married. My wife's here. So, but I'm just saying in general. No, but no, it's probably the most critical component from when you extend that offer and the time frame to when you onboard them. So like some companies just leave that gap too, that week gap, 2-week gap where you're quitting your other job or doing all those things. Like that time period matters just as much as when they walk in the door. Engagement during that 2-week time period is critical because now people have more options than they ever did before. How many of you have heard of ghosting? Right? You know why? Because I used to work for Career Builder. Like, I can get jobs delivered to my phone instantaneously all the time. I've got more options available to me that get pushed to me than me actually looking for a job. And so the opportunities are just too endless. You got to stay engaged all the time. It's work. Yep.
So several times during your presentation, you mentioned the 3 parishes. What are they specifically?
I'm sorry, St. Tammany, Tangipahoa, and Livingston.
Thank you.
And I can pull data from other areas, but that's what I pulled. So, any additional questions?
Is there a correlation between number of interviews and trouble finding talent? Because that's a big thing that I see as a trend is requiring several interviews when things probably could be done in way less time.
Absolutely. Like, anything you do to extend time is going to put pressure on the hire. If you have the right hire, make the decision. I think the question that I ask organizations, and I asked it myself when I ran talent acquisition, is like, do you really care what their opinion is or not? Like, why are they in the interview process? To be nice for a courtesy interview? To like get a thumbs up of approval? Do we need 100% consensus to bring somebody on board? Some companies do, right? And that's okay. I would just figure out ways to streamline that process. And that might be like, all right, every Tuesday morning, we're all going to get together and we're going to do panel interviews. Or we're going to do, like, figure out a way to do the interviews a little bit differently than maybe you have historically, but you have to speed up the process. A candidate is a perishable asset, right? So if you don't think about it as a perishable asset, they will make other decisions or other factors will influence their decision-making process that you have no control over. And so you want to strike as soon as you can. When they move with their feet and they walk in the door, that's your best opportunity to strike.
William, I'm of that age, the retirement age. I'm not retired, but I have friends who did retire at 62. They're finding out now with inflation that it's not a good life.
That's
They're
right.
going back to the workforce. Do you think that's a temporary thing? Or, and then the other thing is the federal government de-incentivizes you to older people to go to work because they tax your Social Security benefits and they tax your Medicare. So that's something maybe the politicians in the room can work toward.
I wouldn't be surprised. And look, there's places where I've walked in to be a consumer and I've seen folks working that are, obviously of retirement age, right? And so there are folks that are entering the labor market. Some people just like to work, right? They like the experience, like to go do something, have a purpose, and that's what they want their purpose to be. I think it varies quite a bit. I don't have any statistics or anything with me to showcase that is a norm that's happening. We still feel like they are leaving the labor force and staying out of it for the most part. They're not re-entering the labor force. But it'd be interesting to study. Actually, if you get with me afterward, I'll try to pull some information and send it to you to see if that's the case. Any other questions? No more questions.
I don't have a question.
Oh, good.
But I would just give William a little shout out. So William, I had the honor of William working for us, and we had Destin, his wife is our general counsel. William worked for us for 4 years, and he really transformed our business and catalyzed Janney King to what we are today. He was one of the catalysts, and he's brilliant. He's awesome. And thank you, William, for all you've done, and thank you for being here.
Yep, thank y'all. Appreciate it. Thanks, Jason.